So before Search My Campus, I think the major need was because it was very soon after I finished college. I just did a job for a year and then I started Search My Campus. The main gap that we saw was that students could not find housing around their campus so easily, right? And that was a big problem. So while there was a lot of classifieds that used to happen, it wasn't really community based classified. It wasn't hyper local in a lot of ways. So the idea was, can we figure out something which is solving needs around that campus? So instead of having, when you say I'm selling a car in Delhi, or I'm selling a bike in Delhi, or I'm selling a housing in Delhi, or I'm renting out a PG in Delhi, it may not be as relevant for a student who's in the campus. He or she wants things which are around that campus. So I think that was, the course idea was, and it picked up really fast because of that fundamental problem. So if you're looking for a carpool, or you're looking to sell your guitar or your used books, your tendency to first you'll get a buyer easily on the campus because they'll all have similar needs. Then your transaction can materialize a lot better because you'll be able to catch hold of the person. And third, I think your trust factor also plays a role because you'll be pretty much around the same area in college. Yeah. So I think the initial step was somehow getting a proof of concept out. So it wasn't initially that much the team. I think it was more bootstrap. So it was get the initial concept out, and of course to get the initial concept out needed a few people. Just so some of them, mostly people were part-time, who were working on the idea, and some of them volunteered. I hired a developer, a very young developer who knew how to write some code. Guided him what I wanted to build. Some of the code was written outside by an agency, and yeah, really the idea was to get the concept out so that we can do proof of concept and see, are really people, is there value creation that is happening or not? Because if the value creation is not happening, then there's no point hiring a team at that stage, I felt. Yeah. And of course I didn't have, it wasn't like a funded venture or anything, so you had to just see what you can do best in terms of seeing whether there is value creation happening. And then from there on, once that value creation was happening, then you started recruiting. Then I started recruiting team. Yeah, but it wasn't really that planned. It's just a series of events that you just go with the flow.
Yeah.
Right, go with the flow, I think. Yeah. So I think a lot of people are looking for exciting things to do, and I think as business has scaled up, so I know it'll be difficult to do that again. But you're able to just inspire people with what you're doing, and some people want to come in and just support. Some people will be willing to work for very little salary. But I think mainly because they like the idea and they like the concept and they want to be part of that early stage piece. Some people would do it because, college students, because they want to do something interesting on the side, right? So I think, of course, you need to motivate them, and most of these people you would not really meet at job interviews. You would probably meet through friends and at party, etc. Come across them and they're looking to do something. I mean, in India, people are looking to do new things and interesting things, and you would tell them this is what you're working on, and some of you will say, okay, I can do some, I have some time, I can work on it. Yeah. Well, first, in Search My Campus, we never raised any money. We were just running it ourselves and making money and you putting that money back in the business. And with that money, we started Lenskart, at some point. And we ran Lenskart for about a year before we raised first round of investment. So over there, I think the basic challenges at that point was that we weren't really looking for funding, right? So we were trying to, I had been doing business for almost 2 to 3 years before that, and we never knew this whole concept of that somebody would be willing to invest money, and of course people would talk about it, and then some people saw value in what we were doing. Some people approached, and we shared with them what we wanted to do, and then we discussed the idea, if somebody wants to put in money in helping the business grow. Let's again going with the flow. I think for us it was in Series A. It wasn't that much of a planned exercise as it may be for some other people. And I think it was just because we were already doing what we wanted to do. In with the funding coming in, we were just able to scale it much faster. But our idea of doing it was it's gonna still happen that way. Yeah. So first, I think you have to have your value creation piece really sorted in your head, and you have to be really honest and real about it. So you can't fool yourself. In fact, you can fool a VC maybe, but you won't be able to fool yourself, right? So if you really think that you're creating value for consumers, then you would know that pretty well. And at what level is that value creation happening? Is it just incrementally better, or is it really true value creation? And if that true value creation is happening, then then there'll be enough people who would be willing to back you. And I think so I would say advice would be ensure that you're creating true value, which means that for end consumer, whoever it is it a business or is it an individual, why are they really buying your product or service or using your product and service? What benefit are they seeing in it versus what they were doing earlier? And is that a really valuable benefit or not? Or is it something that is just incrementally better? And then that is why people would do it today. But, so I think you need to do that litmus test. And and then, that's half the battle won. The second battle is, if you're going to go look for investment, do you have any team members with you, who are going to be able to take this to the next level? And some of those team members early on may not, will not be the guys who you would hire with money. Those are the guys who want to, have similar belief about that idea and are willing to go that extra mile and make it a success. And I think getting those people would sort of also let you be more confident about your model, and then somebody to back it up too. So I think again, we never really started the business that we wanted to build a pure play only online e-commerce business. I think our business, the reason for starting the business is, can we do something which is going to create huge amount of impact in people's life, and is it going to be valuable enough? And I think our company, the reason I'm saying value again and again is because our company used to be called Value, and everything we used to test with that litmus test. That are we generating value? So for us, when we started Lenskart, we felt that this is a big problem in India. 40% of world's blind population lives in India. 75% people who need specs are not wearing specs. All that information is published, but nobody's really doing anything about it. So can we, do something about it? And of course, e-commerce became the route to sort of reach out to that many people. But it wasn't really just e-commerce. It was about what would value mean. So it said that is the value proposition, I can give you high quality specs at a much more affordable price, and if that value was coming out, and if e-commerce was letting us deliver that in large volumes, then that's what it was. So I think that's what kept us going on that focus. At those stages, especially when you're backing an idea yourself, you can't be skeptical about it. I think if you were, then you would not end up doing it anyways, right? So I don't think we were skeptical about it at all. How big would it be? A lot of people would ask that question. One cannot say, and we didn't know what to say too. And we thought that there will be enough people, and there are always enough people in India if you're doing something valuable to figure it out, that how many people is going to buy into your service or product. But I don't think we were skeptical about it working or not working. So there was no plan B from that perspective. Yeah. So I think the biggest challenge in India is that, the overall, let me just do a relative comparison to West and, India. I think the bigger challenge is that I think the work ethic is a little different than what it would be outside India. I think, and a large part of that would be because of the standard of living here, the background, and people have a lot of basic standard of living issues right now, which which doesn't let them think about the work or let them focus on work. So I think that sort of plays that factor in people being fully dedicated to what to the purpose of which they're doing. So the second problem is there's a lot of stuff in India which is considered to be sort of a good job and a average job and a poor job. Like if you're a salesman in an Indian context, it may not be considered as a very respectable job, but anywhere around the world it's a perfectly fine job. In fact, it's the more important job than anyone else sitting in head office, right? So I think those mindsets are more traditional mindsets, which is a blue collar job and a white collar job and all of that. And I think so when you're a customer satisfaction representative in India, it's considered to be he's just a agent, right? And that's the word that is used, but it's not really this guy is the guy who's going to face with our customers. And so I think that that kind of, and when the intent is not there and you want to forcefully make those people drive towards that intent, it becomes a difficult job. So the only way to fight that is to redefine thought processes of people and to work at this level and not just training level. Can their minds be realigned to thinking of this whole thing very differently here? India is not a very, people are not used to do a lot of efficient working in India. So people use more time than what is needed, and they probably do less with more, versus the West. I think they'll do more with less. But I think that also again is a factor of the overall the way Indians are brought up and the way they have seen the world. And I think it varies from city to city. So I think the efficiency is big, the work ethic and the way people think of their jobs as whether it's a big job or respectable job or not. In India, there's another problem that everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, and they feel that I'm working for him and not working for a particular mission and goal. A lot of people see that he's the boss and I'm working for him, and they're saying, no, we're building and trying to build this large company. And I think those are some of the mindsets. There are some, a lot of people feel that there are infrastructural and all of those issues. Honestly, I feel that, in India, it's actually easier because you can get around doing most of the stuff you want to do without a lot of processes initially. So it works. I think it again stems down to, we started these out, but what we figured out is that two things. One is, what is the value creation that is happening in selling watches online and bags online versus what was happening in selling specs, right? And then there was, even if you look at remove the whole online piece and look at what is the level of value creation that is happening? Is it 1x, 2x or 10x better, right? So in specs, we were able to deliver you a 10x better quality specs at probably half the price of what you would get outside the market. Okay, and we would reach out to you, we would make it so convenient and all of that. Whereas in watches and bags, you were really just selling, right? And maybe you were selling it cheaper because we were discounting it, but we were not really selling it cheaper because we could afford to make it cheaper and we were doing anything magical there. So I think that sort of value creation, we realized that since this is happening so much higher here, the opportunity is much bigger here. And of course, that's why this business was, we were able to see that the response was much better. The second thing I would say is that once we started seeing the opportunity in eyewear bigger and bigger, and we saw that people are, anything which is creating meaning is going to automatically attract a lot of consumers, without you doing much about it. So if you've got your value creation right, you won't have to try too hard. Things would fall in place. So once we realize that is falling in place, then, that extra, if you had, let's say, 24 hours in a day, would I put that in something which is generating that kind of value, or would I put even an hour out of that on something which is just, creating average value? And I think that was the decision-making process that led us to deciding that, with whatever time, energy, and focus we will have, we want to put it into this. And that worked really well because suddenly we had, another level of innovation, and all those things that we didn't have to be worried about gave us time to focus on creating more and more consumer value here. So I think it's just, you have to, with startups, like I said, you need to just start, test it out, see what is the value creation happening. Is that high enough or not? And there's no good way to measure, but sometimes you measure it at a gut level and you see, are people really responding to this? Do I have to really try hard? So even if you have to open a company, if you really try hard to recruit people, right, then is there a fundamental problem in the company, right? Then, and of course, there'll always be a way to get people in, but is that, your gut level, you need to decide whether is this working or not working, and you need to keep optimizing till the time it just becomes natural for people to join or use a product or a service. So I think influencing was really, I think we could see a huge opportunity in eyewear, but I think there was no such, we were not dying to sort of shut them down. But I think some of our board members, some of our board members felt that why are we doing this, right? Because if we were to just focus on this, we would probably build a larger and more valuable business than doing this. And I think we also felt, between our internal team and the founders that, with the focus, things are really changing in a very positive direction. I don't know if I've answered your question in terms of. The impact was really phenomenal because there was just so much energy and focus on one particular area and all minds and brains. And I think even if it is a pen on the table, I think it's a distraction. And if your job is not to, you have nothing to do with the pen. So I think that just, freed up a lot of mind space for everybody, including myself. And we were able to do, instead of those 4 different businesses, we were able to do like 4 different verticals within eyewear, which was our core strength. So I think a large part of it was also realizing the true potential within us, which was really living and breathing that, giving quality eyewear at affordable price to people, I think. And we were able to unleash that much faster. So Lenskart is not only an online provider. I think now, and in the last 1 year, we are basically the largest eyewear provider in the country. Whether, of course, all the portion of it happens on an e-commerce platform. Some of it happens without any assistance, just direct. Some of it happens through assistance where somebody's coming to your house and giving you that assistance of, doing your eye exam and helping you place the order. Or you may walk into a store and, try some of our goods and then place an order online and get an eye exam. So the difference between, I wouldn't say that Lenskart would be any less than any other offline player. I think from where we see right now is that we can deliver far higher quality eyewear now. The only difference between a pure online direct play versus offline was that could I try these frames on my face before I could buy them. And I think the way we tackled it is built a 3D virtual try-on and allowed you to choose 5 frames, bring them to your house. So there was a conscious effort to fill that gap. Right, because that would be the only reason why you would not buy, because you're getting higher quality eyewear and at a much affordable price. So why wouldn't you, right? So the only reason was that I want to try it too, and we did a lot of stuff to let you try it. Yeah. So I think it came out of consumer surveys, and we asked a lot of people who did not buy, have they heard about Lenskart? Yes. Why haven't they bought? Because they did not yet were able to build that trust. The second, they would not be able to try. So we said, how can we make them try economically and in a way that we can scale? So which is when we launched all these trial services. So today you can try at home. You can choose 5 frames and they come to your house, and 600-700 people try frames through that every day. And then we said some people said that I want to get an eye exam done before I want to make that purchase. So we enable that service at home. And so I think the true answer is it came through talking to consumers and doing surveys and figuring that out. Yeah. Would improve dramatically because once you're solving a core reason, I think as a business, one of the things you need to answer is people who are not buying or using our service, why are they not doing that? And I think as you keep solving each problem, you will see exponential jumps with as that problem gets solved for a lot of people. And yeah. I mean, we position Lenskart, we don't really position it against any other e-commerce player, I think. What we do is something very unique, valuable. What we do, I don't think a lot of people can do it so easily. We create, we today make about 4,000 specs every day, right in our warehouse. Each of them is a customized order. We are able to check people's eyes at home. I mean, our competition is nothing to do with e-commerce, and we don't even try to position it against any other e-commerce. No other e-commerce website sells glasses, and neither are we trying to position anything against an offline eyewear player too. I think what we are doing is just communicating what is our proposition and continuing to figure out how can we, instead of creating these 4,000 specs a day, build capacity to do it at 40,000. And I think the service is valuable enough that as we build capacity, people are gonna buy into it. And so I think the positioning is really, there's no positioning. I think for us, it's about customers. Are those customers coming, happy or not? If they're not, then we have to keep figuring out why are they not happy. And the ones which are not even trying us, what is stopping them from trying us, and what can we do to make them make that bet to try us. I mean, every day, all the time, everything. It's just the team that is doing most of the stuff. I don't think I'm doing most of it. And I think I've been a big believer of, in fact, I don't know how to quote an example, but it's in every moment. I mean, if yesterday we had some consumers who were facing some problems, so it's the team that is figuring out how to help those consumers every day. If there are a few, you'll always have those 5% unhappy customers, so there's a team that is trying to figure out how to help those customers. If you have a website that may not be performing well, then it's the team that is functioning on making sure that it is up. If you have a problem that consumers are not buying because they cannot try, or consumers are buying but not enough as we would like to, so then there's a team member who figured out that we can enable buying by letting people try 5 frames at home. So I think at every stage and every moment, yeah. So I think the core characteristic, would change at every stage of business. But I think one characteristic would be important throughout would be the passion quotient and the purpose of joining. So do they really believe in what we are doing or not? Are they bought into the idea fully? And sometimes people say it for the sake of saying it in an interview, but they've not really bought into it. And I think judging that is important. Are they passionate about things overall? So I doubt that a lot of people would have completely bought into the idea just at an interview stage. Some of those things develop over time, and that's the job, of the company to, and the culture to sort of get them excited about it. But, are they fundamentally like the concept? Then second is, are they passionate about, are they just generally passionate people? So whatever they do, would they do it with passion or not? And I think you can hire the most capable people, but if they're not passionate about it, I don't think they're going to create any difference. More so early stage, later maybe you may get some work out of them, but I think will be half the potential that would be possible. So yeah, and I think then of course, as you scale up, I think passion is just the most important thing. If you're going to get a high IQ, 25 years experience guy without passion, without belief, you're not going to make it, I think. Now, as the business scales up and stage changes, you may define capability levels and you may want people at different capability levels, and you would always hire people for not now and maybe 5 years later. But I think sometimes you have to also go on a gut feel of, are you feeling good about this person? Are you gelling well? Do you like the ideas? Uh, I rate energy level to be really high in a person. So if usually I doze off if the conversation is not good. So that's a sign for me that I'll probably not be able to have enough exciting conversation. If the conversation can get exciting and it's energetic, then I think that's important for me. Yeah. See, in initial stages, you are the culture. I don't think you can really define a culture. I mean, it would be difficult because there's so much to do at that stage that you can define. I think what you do and how your actions as an entrepreneur or your core team is what is going to define the culture. So if you're gonna be high energy, then the culture will be high energy. If you're passionate, then everybody will be passionate. If you're super consumer centric, then company will be super consumer centric. If you're always late to meetings, then the company will always be late to meetings. If you never meet targets, company will never meet targets. So I think it's just sort of would be your reflection of few people, and then as it scales up, then it starts becoming a reflection of your managers, and then as it scales up, then you say, okay, this is now becoming a mixture of things, because people who are direct report to me have a certain culture, but people downline do not have a very different culture because they never saw what you have, and maybe what you had is not good enough for the company to go to next levels. And that time, I think you pick up the good points and you pick up the bad points, and you try not to repeat the bad points so much and overemphasize the good points. You can't have a completely flip around culture. I think if there's a certain style, it's like if you're born in a Bengali family, there's certain things that you'll do. It's difficult to get, you walk into a Bengali house, it's a Bengali house. You walk into a South Indian house, you'll know it's a South Indian house. So culture to me is a lot like that. You can't take it away from companies just like that, which is, I say, it starts with the DNA, it starts with the core team. But yeah, I think as the company scales, there's a conscious effort on certain things which I think are detrimental as a culture for organization to go to the next level. So being super cautious about it, building a support structure, so sure we don't send that messaging out, picking up the good points, which is important. You can pick up a few external points which you never used to do and practice, but you can practice them now. But a lot of them will be the core which you were doing good, because of which you reached that stage, and you don't want to lose those pieces, and those will be unique to every company, and I think it's the most important thing. I mean, but thinking about it too much early on may not just do anything, because at early stages, whether you can define it too much, I don't know. I think you have to do what you have to do, and as the company scales up, you can do a little bit more effort defining it. And as far as vision and mission is concerned, I think those change every year or every 2 years, depending on the outlook of the team and the company at that point in time. But I think behind the vision and mission, there'll be something which is purpose, and that purpose will probably not change. I think, so for us, our purpose was very clear, that we wanted to create enthusiastic customers all the time. And for us, the motivating factor or the demotivating factor, to me the purpose is really what would happen for you to just not do this business. So for us, if the customers were not happy, we would not want to do this business. We would just shut it down and not do it. And what would motivate us is that you're creating. So if we were not selling glasses and we were selling something else, I think as long as the customers were happy and it was high scale, which was important for us, we would still, do it. So I think that purpose doesn't change, but the vision and a mission. Today you want to be India's largest eyewear company. Tomorrow you may be world's largest, and then you may some point wanted to be the leader in watches also, and now you don't want to be. But I think that is less important to me. I would say, from budgeting and putting numbers, keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate life early on. Focus on value creation. Again, what is it that is happening for consumer? If somebody is going to invest, if the reason why you're doing that number crunching is to raise money, then if you can put all the numbers, but if there's no value creation, I think you're wasting time. So if you've figured that piece out, then you can put together a basic high level plan in terms of what's the market size, what's the, how many you're going to sell, and of course whatever you plan will usually be way off of what you're going to do. So it could be either too low or could be too high. I think it's difficult, and if you head right there bang on, then you're lucky. But I think what you need to be very clear about is that what is it that you exist for. And as business scales and you get clarity of business and the numbers, then you can put together projection. But I would say if you're doing a projection and budgeting, then at that stage, invest a little bit more time in doing it and make it inclusive where multiple people are involved, and get some professional help if you don't have a resource like that internally, or hire somebody who can do that for you. You may not be just because you're the one who founded the business, it won't make you the best planner or the best budgeting guy. And it's fine. As long as you understand your consumer and the value creation, that's all that I think a founder and entrepreneur should really have to do. Rest everything, you can hire people who can do all the crazy numbers, plus minus, and make it conservative, pessimistic, optimistic, and do all of that. What you need to then look at is, and really believe in it. So if somebody just draws it out for you and you say yes, I think it's probably not. So give it a clear thought. Does this look like what you're gonna do? And then whatever you estimate out to be, I would say then just discount it by X percentage, because even if you don't do it, a VC would. So all the time, I think we fail quite frequently every day, and we've failed multiple times over the last 4 years in Search My Campus, in Lenskart, in Backskart, and WatchCart, and even within Lenskart, just to give you examples, we've failed miserably in a lot of things, but we just start from scratch, or we just think that it was a mistake we did and we just need to get over with it and move on. And in fact, you don't even need to get over it, you just move on. And I think you don't talk about it. I think talking about failures, if you can drive constructive knowledge from it, is fine, because if you learn out of a failure. The problem is if you're not making a failure and you're not learning out of a failure, I think. But if you are able to make mistakes fast and learn from them fast, then that's the best way to do it. I mean, we launched the Home Eye Checkup program, maybe failed it, then launched it again. I mean, today we are doing 1,000 eye exams every day at people's houses. We launched it we were doing eye exams in a taxi, then we started doing it at home, and of course it didn't work at the taxi level, it started work at the home level. So I think you just keep trying, as long as you understand the end goal. And there are just tons of examples every day. I mean, you may try out a TV commercial for that matter, and it may not work, but then it just did not work. You can't just spend your whole life thinking why it did not work. Of course you should know why it did not work, but you're not going to kill somebody for not making it work. And he's never going to try to produce a campaign again for you. So I think some top failures is getting some. So I think pre-funding, our core criteria for hiring people was passion. Just immediately after funding, for a little while, I would say, just for a little while, our criteria became capability, and capability is important, but we forget about the passion question. So we hired these really, really capable people who were not so passionate, or at least, they were not passionate enough, right? And we brought into a culture which needed a lot more problem solving, and this was not some, a $1 billion company yet. And I think that was a mistake, and we failed there, and people came in, they couldn't, these were bigger problems and it needed adjustment and a little bit extra mile. And I think that's where we failed, and we corrected that, and we sat and analyzed where did we go wrong. And I think we analyzed that, these people were not passionate enough, right? And then we said this is going to be the core thing that we're going to evaluate thereon. And it doesn't matter whether the person is senior or junior, but if they don't have this, then it can, we lose a lot of months. I think from a failure perspective, we were once, I think about a year and a half back, moving our entire production from one software to the other, and we failed miserably. I mean, it was a huge change, one software to the other. It was, 7, 8 days. There were, I think, thousands and thousands of specs orders lying in the warehouse. We were not able to produce because the information was coming all wrong, and then we were making same specs multiple number of times. It lasted for about 15 days. So that whole change happened, took a long time. I think we even, we probably lost a lot of money in that whole change because we lost those consumers and the brand was at risk. It was a tough time, but I think it was a good learning that you need to plan some of these things better, and some of these things happened. So we came out of it just fine, I think, after that. So I think that was big learning, and I think some of these things you have to be very careful when you're on a live meter kind of model where you need to be cautious about it. Other than thing, I think you see mostly. I think the biggest failures are not really business failures. I think the biggest failures are when we're not able to hire the right person and able to create the right environment, right? And I think then learning from that failure is that's the failure, because that's what makes you lose time and energy. But then, which is why you want to make that mistake fast and correct it fast. And I think the biggest mistakes I would say for a company is that when you not put in the right person for the right job, and that's costs you more than anything else. Yeah. So I think the biggest is mobile, right? And the world is moving there, businesses are moving there. It's amazing how people are making all their consuming content, shopping, listening to music, everything is happening on mobile, because in the West, I think mobile is usually the add-on device. In India, it's the first device for a lot of people. So I think that's the trend, I think, that I'm seeing very, very powerful. The second trend that I'm seeing is that I'm seeing that product companies are coming. There's a lot of interesting product startups that are happening in India. India has been a company where we are traders and sellers, but we have not been the guys who would build a product like a Facebook or a Google, which are highly product-centric firms. And I think I see a lot of that trend happening in India. We have some great examples of companies that are creating just great software, and people are using that software. So a lot of SaaS is happening, I think, which is interesting, which means the quality of talent and development talent in India is improving, right? And these are global softwares, right, which people are using. Yeah. Yeah, so I think I would say it's very important. From whether you are a startup or not a startup, of course, when you're very, very early stage, you may not worry about, at least for us, it was never so much about data when it was about the consumer. So when it's saying that, okay, this is going to make the consumer happy, then it wasn't about data. But then beyond that, everything was about data. And I think that's important. And even if you don't have the right person, you're not the right person to do it, having somebody on your team to do that. And with data, there are two things. One is just, are you able to record a lot of data? And the second is, are you able to analyze it and consume it in a way that would make sense? So for us, from very early days, my co-founder Amit, he was very focused on data. I mean, we were all from engineering background, so we knew MySQL, but Amit was just really, really passionate about it. He from very early stages had set up everything on a database, and we were recording information and looking at it from different perspectives. So I think importance of data is high and is going to continue to be high, because that will allow you to take some very strong, important decisions to decide the course of the business. So yeah. So I think what motivation was to, I wasn't from a business background in terms of education. And so I think I wanted to learn a little bit on some of the business fundamentals around marketing and finance and some of that. the other piece was, getting to meet like-minded people and learning from their experiences. And I think that happened and was one of the most valuable things that happened. The education, of course, when you get it, is something that's going to stay with you. You may not use it directly all the time, and some of those learnings will come over period. So I'm not too worried about that. But I think the whole, it was my education there was really more for people who were entrepreneurs and businesses, running businesses. So I think networking with a lot of people, figuring out, what have they achieved in life. Some of them had already built large businesses. Some of them were about to. I was the one who was just about to. So I think that, gave me the confidence to do it even more. It also, let me network with a lot of people who I still know today and network with them even now. Third, I think you get to see these case studies in a program like in an MBA program or in a management school, which lets you figure out and crisps, it makes your concepts about these consumer value, and so you'll have a case study on some of the larger companies around the world. And I think if you start picking up what are the dots there and you start joining them and figuring out what would it take for us to get there. Yeah. So you'll always, between volume and quality, you always have to choose one, right? So in this also you have to choose one, and I would pick passion any day over capability, right? I know passionate people, of course you're not going to hire a completely incapable person, but if I was to say this guy is only 70% capable but highly passionate, and this guy is 100% capable and half passionate, I would hire the higher guy who's high passion and only 70% capable. So I think if you have that fundamental clear, then you can go hire people. And of course, I agree that you can't wait for everything to be 100% before you hire. But yeah, I would hire somebody who's passionate. And passionate in general in life, in whatever they do, not necessarily about your business. And I want to be clear and specific about that. Nobody, very rarely we would find people at the time of interview who are very, very as passionate about your business as you are. But as long as they're general in nature, passionate about what they do, you will be able to get them excited about your business, and you'll get feelings of that within the interview process, right? So let me answer the whole ticket size and the the LTV and all that repeat buying behavior. I think in a business like ours, when you're creating category, we are seeing people come back every 6 months to buy a pair of specs, right? Which is of course the industry. So your benchmark is really what you define it to be, right? One would say that, oh, you're a mobile phone business and people buy mobile phones only once in 2 years, which is getting changed, right? I again think that all of these questions get answered once you are really, figured out true consumer value. So for example, giving you an example of ATV. I mean, our ATV has doubled over the last 2 years, right? So in fact, our earning per order right now is the highest than any other e-commerce business. You can pick up any e-commerce business across sectors, and I can guarantee you that the money that they make, absolute amount of money that they make across, you can pick up 15,000 average everyday ticket size business or ours, our earning per order will be higher than any other business. So, and to me that happens only when true value is getting created. So people will pay up for it. I think those things can all be figured out. The thing is, are you doing something that is going to change people's life in a way that it has never been done before? And is it that easy that somebody will just copy and do it, or is it something that you're really doing differently? Right? So when people say, "Oh, this is a private label and I'm doing it," and so someone else can also do it. If it's something that can be done by money alone, just because somebody would, then it's not valuable enough, I think. So yeah, I think the skills are changing, and which is why one has to hire people who can learn fast and grow fast. So I think if you're going to hire people just for their current capabilities, those capabilities may expire. very soon. So if you not have people who can learn something fast enough, then that may be a challenge. So I think first I would want that capability of people being able to learn fast. So are they somebody who's going to take a year to grasp something, or are they people who can just get things fast? And I think if that training can be done. Second, I think from a skill set perspective, particularly getting down to very specific skill sets, I think data analytics. That's lot of people today don't understand that really well, and even if they do, they've not got an education to practice that enough. So that is one, I think, gap area in the market. Second, I think technology, big gap. Development ecosystem in India is big, but the quality of developers is varies across. So you have really average developers, really good developers, and I think that if those skills can be honed. So I think where we lack in India in the development space is that there's not enough fundamental base building that happens at development. So you really don't start at your C and your programming logics. You straight away given a Java course, and you're supposed to mug it all up and write a course, and you never really write enough code. So I think some people may have perfectly good logic, but it needs to be built up. So I think if that piece can be solved, there's going to be an explosion, because you have all this talent, right? They all went to engineering schools, but they never really did code, or they never really got to learn true fundamentals of programming and database, and how RDBMS and relationship management would work. So I think that base needs to be built. So if somebody can tell them, okay, this is this is how you think about logic, so people never really learn how to reverse a string, and straight away went to writing codes, and then the end result is clear in the Indian ecosystem. The quality of code that is coming out, which is what is creating a lot of this gap. I think even areas like digital marketing today, and like you mentioned, while I see a lot of people have learned now how to do bidding on Google and doing Facebooking, running a Facebook ad, I don't think there's enough talent which again understands the fundamentals of some of these things. Even SEO in India is like, you put some links and start posting, and for a lot of people that is SEO, but that's not. So I think those are areas where we are riding on a bubble of not knowing. So the trainer does not know, and the students don't know, and they all don't know. And it keeps rotating around like that. So yeah, there are tons of areas, I think. So one is, I think online education needs to make it really easy to do this thing, and not some planned decision for somebody. And I think I'm just taking an example of what we did with specs, right? Specs used to be this planned purchase. You would take your wife or husband and think about it and all of that, and we made it affordable, and we made it fashionable, and people are buying specs. We have people who bought 27 specs in a year. And so I think it needs to play that explosion of this is not something that I want to think about 10 times before doing it. So only if I do it will I learn, but more people need to try and do it, I think. And so which is where something of that nature which can be more less friction, easy to do, more and more people trying to do it. Second, I think if in online education there can be, one is of course just reading all the information and watching videos, but can you really what is the validation of whether you have learned something or not? So can there be some online assessment after that which you take for yourself, or some way of practically doing some of these things? Can you participate in a project online or contribute? And that could be some bit of not just content learning, but maybe practical learning. So online education, I think, has been there in India for ages. I mean, I don't think it's a new concept. It's been there. Maybe the mobile piece of it is new, and the IIN and all of that, but I think it's not really new. But I think what is lacking is the quality of content. I think has not been great. So it starts with A, quality of content. B, does it make you get to practical stuff, or it's going to be just stuff that I listen and half the time I'm not listening and I'm just dozing off? So is it interesting enough? Can I get to practice a little bit, contribute a little bit, do a real time this thing, and then fourth, can I assess myself, and so that I know that I haven't learned it, so I need to learn it again, and it should be just easy. I mean, I may try to learn digital marketing and realize this is not my cup of tea, but then do the other thing and figure out what's interesting for you. Make meaning and money will follow.
Elaborate a little bit more.
I think I would say that to most budding entrepreneurs, that there's no plan A and plan B. And I think a lot of people I know are doing jobs and they want to be entrepreneurs. I don't somehow believe in that model of doing two things at the same time, because then you're not focusing enough and you have to take that bet. And either you're fully in it or you're not. Because if you're not fully in it, it's not going to work. Even if you have a crazy idea, it won't work. So I think that's one single piece of advice. And the second is, the entrepreneurship doesn't start with investment, right? It's, the whole concept of, are you funded, which means, you've raised investment, which you're a successful business, is not true. If you really, so which is why I say create meaning and money will follow, is you have to keep asking yourself, are you really, a lot of people today enter e-commerce saying that, looks like a great opportunity, everybody is able to sell, even I'll sell, let's figure out what is the best product to sell. This is the best product to sell, so even I'll sell. I don't think you can do it that way, right? You figure out a gap, you figure out a problem, then you go do it, and you do it with full force and full energy. You don't just do a half-hearted effort at it. So I think if you do that, then there's no stopping or nothing can hold you back.